Greetings, Iain from RTO here. Welcome to Tuesday on the channel, and today's album ranking is sort of tidying up Gary Numan. Apart from the fantastic albums that he has put out over the years, he has had time to do some collaborations and soundtracks, so I thought I would have a look at those. Now, I would only suggest that if you're as Nick from Nick's Vinyl Buddy said, if you're a total numeroid, you'd have these. I haven't, but I have had. They are on YouTube, so I've had a listen to them, and I've come up with this little ranking. So there's only 4, so it's a very short one today. So coming in at number 4 is a soundtrack he did with someone called Ade Fenton, and it's from Inside, and it came out in 2014. So the first, they're all little tracks, so there's lots of little snippets here. So the first one is called The Train. Now, as with most soundtracks, if you've never watched the film, you really haven't got a clue what's going on. But this is a nice ambient piece of music, and it's got a nice beat to it. Then we get a thing called The Wasteland. It's just one of these little sound bites, little bits from the previous track. Don't know what's going on, but I look at it as a music perspective. It's very clever what Gary and Ade have done there. Then we get We Crossed a Bridge Over Death. Ambient and weird noises. That's all I can describe it as. Then we have a thing called On a Red Lake. Now this has got some lovely piano on here. There's a creaking door and atmosphere. That's how I saw it. The empty house, not very listenable. It's just loads of noises and creaking doors. Unless you've seen the film, you can't really see what's going on there. Memories of Fire. This is probably my favourite piece of music from here. It's a lovely ambient, dramatic piece of keyboard music. But you know it's Gary Numan. And we have a thing called Duty. It's got a little bit of melody in it. It's not bad, actually. It's quite good. So Many Bodies is more of a sort of a soundbite thing there. Refinery, another good track. One of the best tracks on the album. It's got a funny sort of beat on it, and there's a lovely little bit of keyboard through this. Crows is just a drum machine and a few sounds. It might have been relevant on the soundtrack, but as something to listen to, no. The Killing, lots of drum programming and a few bits of keyboards. Not listenable as an album, but may have had some prominence in the movie. Then there is My Part in This Is Over. Some lovely synthesizer and swirling sounds from Gary on that. Almost Inhuman, a bit irritating. It's got noises, not listenable as an album. A Moment of Reflection. It's just lots of sound bites and effects. Nothing Can Stop Us, a very dramatic piece here. Little keyboard stabs in it as well. Then we get The Cave In, just loads of noises on this one. A Dream About a Dirty Faced Girl, lots of drum programming in with a few noises. The Little Fire Engine, there are lots of bell noises in here. I wonder why. Heaven and Hell, my favourite bit on this second disc, because this is a 2-disc set. It's got a sort of a vocal sound on it, and it's got a bit of a thing that's like a heartbeat. Levitation, lots of weird noises. The End of the World, tuneful track. Lot of structure to this one, not bad. See the Light, I like this one. There's some nice contrasting keyboards. Lots of them elements that you expect with Gary Numan being involved. Then we've got Falling, little bits of keyboards and pianos. The Bandaged Man, lots of sound effects and sound bites, and the last one, Into the Eternal Flame, very similar to the Bandaged Man. Yeah, it's alright. As I said, with most soundtracks, you don't know what's going on, but I do appreciate what Gary is trying to do here. Although it's not a great listen as an album, but as a soundtrack, it's okay. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 3 out of 10. Okay, and coming at number 3. Now this is from 1995, and it's a collaboration he did with Michael R. Smith, and it's Human, Unborn, the soundtrack from 1995. First track is called Navigators. This is quite good. It's actually what Gary does with his normal sort of work. It's got all them elements of that lovely keyboard sound. Not a bad track actually. And then we get Bombay, very quirky. This is again, you know, it's Gary Numan. We Fold Space. Now this is very short. It's okay. A Cry in the Dark. Again, it's got that distinctive Gary Numan sound. Manic. This has got sort of saxophone and it is. You can tell it's got that manic sort of feel to it. Then we get a thing called Empire. I quite like the bass line on this. It's really good. It's very Gary Numan. A little Lost Soul, lots of little sound effects and little stabs of keyboard. The Visitor, very eerie sort of keyboard sounds with a bell on it. Magician, again, very short piece of interlude music and very soothing. Undercover comes next. Now, what can we say about Undercover? It's a short piece, got a lot of structure in 1 minute and 37, and a nice sound. Halloween is very eerie, and it's that industrial sound that we get with the modern Gary Numan albums. Embryo, lots of noises going on, don't know what's going on that. Elm Street, it's just a few sounds and little stabs there. Harmonious, it's got that industrial sound on it which I quite like. Big Old 10, it's my favourite piece on here. It's very short, so genteel, nice sounds on that. Blind Faith is more that industrial sound. New Life, it's bright, it's got a lovely sound to it, a great bass line. Fairy Tales, this is quite eerie and spine chilling. Disease, I don't mind, this is an atmospheric and ambient track. I love the percussion on this, it sounds good. Tidal Waves is just lots of noises. Alone and Afraid, and then we get the signature Gary Numan keyboards. Sahara, you know, it's got a feel of being in the Sahara. It's got that ambience. Cold. Again, he's created the thing that you when you listen to this, you do feel the cold. Do You Wonder? Really short. You know, it could have been elaborated into a bigger track. It's quite good actually. Betrayal, one of them sounds bite sort of things. Suspicion. Again, it's only a minute long, but this could have developed into something else. It's a really good intro. The Unborn, now this is very metallic, a little bit of atmosphere. Lethal Injection. I don't know what this is about at all. When you see Lethal Injection, it can mean a lot of things, so we won't go too far, but it's a lot eerie sort of thing. Frantic, more of that sort of frantic drumming. Mother, very short, but a light, it's just under a minute long, very nice piano. Blackheart, it's just drum machines and a few keyboard bits. Thunder Road is a little piece with drum that's more concentrated on drum programming. Law and Order, very similar to the last track, so I think he just flows into it. And Needles, Again, it's all these last few tracks sort of flow into each other. Climax, it's not too bad. It's a little short stab, and then Inferno just carries on from the last piece. I think this is a pretty half decent soundtrack actually. Some nice sounds on this, but it is a soundtrack album. And as I said, I do appreciate Gary's work, so I shall give this an RTO ranking of 4 out of 10. Number 2 then. Now this is a soundtrack that released from a game sort of thing. It's called the Radial Repair Video Soundtrack, and it contains music from a video that features Gary Numan and fellow stunt pilot Norman Lee's performing aerobatics. So it was sort of a game sort of thing, and it was only released in the fan club, but I actually found it on YouTube. So on here, there are some things on there. Some of the tracks were developed to what was his next studio album, Sacrifice, when he was doing this. So there's little bits of this that actually do appear on Sacrifice. Kiss Me Dies, a fine example. He used most of the stuff from as a track. Some of the sound does feature on Sacrifice. It's not too bad. It's a good start. Then we get Mission. This is a quirky little thing. I like the drums in this, and the keyboards, pretty good. Dark Rain, again quirky. I recognise little bits that went on to go on to Sacrifice. Cloud Dancing. This is really good. It's got that industrial sound, quite eerie and atmospheric. Virus, probably one of the weaker tracks on these soundtracks. Cold House, more drumming. Red Sky, just lots of noises. Then we get my favourite piece on the last piece, Machine Heart. Definitely Gary Numan's signature sound. Very short soundtrack for a video type game thing. Interesting sounds. I quite think this is really good. And I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 6 out of 10. Okay then, number 1. Now this is an album called Automatic, released in 1989. And it was released by Bill Sharpe and Gary Numan. Now Bill Sharpe is a member of the jazz fusion group Shack Attack. So on here we've got Gary Numan on lead vocals. He doesn't do no keyboard singing. You've got Bill Sharpe on keyboards, Roger Odell on drums, Tessa Niles again doing some backing, John Davis on some synthesizers, Mitch Dalton on guitars, Linda Taylor backing vocal. First track on here, it's called Change Your Mind. Probably the best track on the year. It's very 80s. This was done in 1989. It's got a great vocal from Gary, singing great. Tessa Niles and Linda Taylor doing the background singing. It sounds a little Human League-ish. It's pretty good. Turn Off the World, again, you got to appreciate this was done in the 80s. And Shack Attack, it's got that jazz, it's got that mixture of jazz and electronic 80s music. It's quite good actually. It's a great vocal from Gary. Then we get No More Lies. Definitely not keen on this one. It's not for me. It's too 80s, very stock Aiken and Waterman sound. Not for me. Breathing Emotion. This is a quirky track. It's got some nice keyboard runs here from Bill, and Gary again provides a great vocal. Some New Game. Again, it's not brilliant, but it's listenable, and Gary sounds great on it. He really does. This some great vocals on that. I Am Automatic, very stock Aiken and Waterman again, not my thing. Rip It Up, again, some nice sounds on there. Quite funky. Nothing wrong with that one. Welcome to Love, again, very good. The vocals on this is fantastic. The melody is pretty good, and Tessa and Linda are really good on this as well. Then we get voices. Now this sort of thing, you know, the 1980s movies, some of the comedy movies, and that they want that tacky drum and the high-pitched synthesizers. That's what it is. I'm not very keen on this. Nightlife, don't like that one again. It's just 280s stock Aiton and Waterman filler nonsense, which I was never a thing. There's some great songs on this. It's a fine vocal from Gary, although he didn't play no keyboards. Very Human League in places as well. You got some like jazz sort of sound from the Shack Attack, so it's not too bad. I'd never heard this album, but it's an album that you could sort of grow on you. So I shall give this one an RTO ranking of 6.5. So there we go. That's rounded up Gary Numan. Didn't realise that there was still a lot of love for Gary Numan out there, which is fantastic. So I'll be back shortly with retro ranking, and in a couple of weeks' time it is the FA Cup final here in the UK. The oldest cup competition in the world, and there is a tradition, the teams that get to the final, I don't know it so much now, but back in the day you'd have to do a cup final single. Some were okay, some were terrible. So we'll be looking at my top 10 FA Cup songs, and the honourable mentions this week are just football songs that were not FA Cup songs but are quite quirky. So that's all to come. So bye for now.